Hi, folks, and welcome back. Great to have you, as always. Really appreciate your being here each and every day. Never, ever take that for granted. And I know you feel the same about me showing up here each and every day. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the EIB network. And we're going to be getting the phone soon in this hour. Once again, I intended to in the previous hour, but I didn't make it. Oh, no, what happened to the guy? Oh, for crying out loud, did you get his number? No. You know, we had a guy, this is why I wanted to get the calls the first time. We had a guy claims to be a 20-year listener, is a hardcore leftist, but loves the program. He says he hears things, news things, stories that he doesn't hear anywhere else. That's why he listens. He doesn't get mad. He appreciates the passion I bring, and he thinks that I'd be a great guy to have a sit-down, face-to-face conversation with. Is that what he was going to say? And I was going to ask, how can you be a 20-year listener here and still remain a liberal? I mean, that's what liberals are afraid of. You remember when Tom Daschle, 2002 was such a watershed year. Because 2002, the midterm elections, that was the year Paul Wellstone died, and they had that big memorial for him in Minnesota, where Republican colleagues of Wellstone's in the Senate showed up and were booed out of the building, where the memorial, and it turned out it was not a memorial. It turned into a giant, progressive, just uber leftist political rally. And it was just filled with hate-filled comments about Republicans and others. And one of the speakers was Tom Harkin. And they were feeling their oats. They thought that they had successfully destroyed Bush. Even though Bush was in office, the Florida recount had been divisive and impassioned. They were fit to be tied. They thought the Supreme Court stole the presidency from them by shutting down the 18th recount or whatever it was. And they were just loaded for bear. And then 9/11, of course, happened, and they gave Bush a couple of weeks, and then they launched. And they thought that the standard operating procedure in the political playbook was going to happen, that in off-year elections, the out-of-power party wins big in congressional and Senate races. And they were loaded. They thought they were going to reclaim the House in 2002. Well, it didn't happen. It turned out that the Republicans gained seats. I'll never forget, I was doing election night coverage with Tim Russert and Tom Brokaw that night on NBC. And Brokaw was clearly unnerved by it. He was surprised. All the political professionals were. This wasn't supposed to happen. Bush was supposed to be already universally reviled. The Republicans were supposed to have been thoroughly identified as cheaters, having stolen the election from Al Gore. And in the Wellstone Memorial, they thought was going to be a great rallying point for Democrat vote turnout, and then they end up losing seats, and they were beside themselves. And they didn't know. And shortly after that, Tom Daschle, who at the time was the Senate Majority Leader, I remember Daschle came out of a meeting post-midterms. Remember this, Snerdley? He came out of a meeting that Democrat leaders had had, and he expressed shock, surprise, and disappointment. He said their expert research had shown not only were Democrats listening to Rush Limbaugh, but they were changing their party affiliation. And they didn't think, they had the completely opposite idea. They thought that I was driving people away from the Republican Party. They thought that I was creating Democrats with my daily extremism. And their own research showed the exact opposite was happening. Then they combined that with the exit polling data from the midterms, and they found out that values voters were the primary reason that Republicans gained seats. And the Democrats were confused because they couldn't remember any values issues. And I had to remind him, you demonstrated where your values aren't with that Wellstone Memorial. You people, you don't understand how that hurt you. You don't understand how that hurt. You thought that was one of the biggest political rallies you'd ever conducted, and it was all positive. You had no idea that it was suicidal, near suicidal for you. So, anyway, it's a long story, but I tell it because how can somebody be a liberal listening for 20 years and remain one? I mean, and like the program. I would really like to have asked the guy that. But Snerdley tells me he had to hang up because his lunch hour was... See, if you'd have told me that he had a limited amount of time for his lunch hour, I would have stopped everything and taken the call. Well, Yagi is going to call back, but when's he going to get through? August? November? Sure, he can call back. He may be calling back right now. You know how long it's... Some people, it's taken them 22 years to get into this program. Then when he gets back in, how long are you going to keep him on hold? Another hour?